Hello, guys and gals. Hope you are all well. This is going to be my latest or my review of the latest Lovecraft Country episode. So, this is episode 6 of the first season, and the episode is called Meet Me in Daegu. Daegu? However you say it. Which is, of course, a play on the title of the famous Judy Garland film Meet Me in St. Louis. And Judy Garland and her films do actually feature quite heavily in this episode, so that's why they've gone to that for the title. Now, Daegu, I'm assuming, is the setting for this episode. It's set in the past, it's set in Korea, and it dives into Atticus's past when he was at war, and particularly his experience with this one character. So we're introduced properly, I should say, to the character of Jinho, who's actually the central character of this episode. Bizarrely, she does take up most of the focus. Atticus has more of a supporting role, and again, I think it really highlights that this show isn't afraid to change the focus, to switch things up with like characters and the amount of time and just the focus. Obviously, this is an episode entirely set in the past. It's set in a different setting, South Korea, so most of the dialogue throughout the episode is in like Korea, and I said South Korea. I'm not quite sure which part of Korea, but somewhere in Korea anyway, during the war. And yeah, we're basically introduced to a new character, this character in the past. And she's not a totally new character because we've heard her on the telephone speaking to Atticus. Or I'm guessing it's meant to be the same character because, of course, he's spoken to a Korean woman on the phone. He did in the first episode, and then he did at the end of last week's, which was kind of like the dramatic ending of last week's, where he kind of was kind of looking for answers. He was sort of freak out, well, what did you do to me, sort of thing, or what are you, was the question, I think. So I think it's fair to say, based on that cliffhanger last week, then this is meant to be the woman he's been speaking to on the telephone. So almost a mystery woman. So look behind that. And yeah, really impressive episode again. Some good meaty stuff going on. And this series definitely does work very well as like almost an anthology, where each episode does feel like its own thing, except obviously you do have the sort of same recurring characters and there is an ongoing plot, but definitely the majority of episodes feel like they do work as standalone stories, and it's really impressive the way they do that. Of course, this one feels a bit different because of the different setting, and also because there's no Yeti in this one. She doesn't feature Ruby, who was actually the main focus last week. She doesn't feature in this one. There's no Montrose, so changing things up again, which is really interesting. And I think what they do at the start of the episode is really clever as well, because they set you up on one particular path. You follow this character of Jinho, and we see that she's a young girl in Korea. We see her with her mother at the beginning of the episode, and she comes from a very like traditional like background, and we see that she comes from sort of modest settings, and they're quite a poor family, and she's dreaming of making it big, or to somehow bring some money into the family. And there's this disagreement between her and the mother. The mother basically is very, well, almost traditional, because she's basically saying the best way to bring money to this family is if you marry a rich guy, basically, like a doctor or something like that. She's kind of suggesting that. Whereas Jinnah she's very much like, I want to get an education, I want to have a proper career, and she sees that as the way to obviously bring back some money and to support her family, her mother. But it's also a way for her to escape, for her to experience the world as well. She's obviously a young girl, and so you have that sort of conflict. And then in the next instance, we see her go off to, well, she's in nursing school basically. And I think what's clever about this side of things is that we sort of see her overhearing like the other nurses, like the more established nurses, and them kind of talking about their social lives and their dates and stuff. And you sort of sense that they're a lot more confident than her, and quite sort of, whatever, kind of very gossipy and stuff. But she obviously finds out about like these date nights, which we've seen in other cultures, but the sort of thing where you go along and you're sort of paired up with a random guy, but then it's like a revolving type thing where they keep switching every now and again, and you just see if I guess something clicks. But I think the clever detail about that is that it's almost like she goes to nursing school, maybe just for that. Like maybe that influenced her decision, because she knew, hey, it could be a good way to meet like a doctor or something, or it could be a good way, if she hears about like these date type thing. I don't know, but it's just something that crossed my mind, that maybe she almost made the decision to train to be a nurse because her mother wanted her to like meet a rich sort of guy, or something like that. It might be coincidental, but this is the way we go. Then she's going out to like these as I said, whatever they're called, date nights, and she's obviously looking for a guy, and the idea is that she's trying to marry, and she's trying to bring the guy home, introduce him to the mother, and hopefully get married, that sort of thing. So the idea is that she's maybe been pressured into doing it by the mother. But boy, this is when they twist things around and the supernatural element comes in, and we get like the horror stuff coming as well. And it's again something this show does so well, because it gives you quite a grounded sort of opening, and just this natural sort of drama, and you wonder where it's going exactly, and then bang, it hits you, it shows you where it's going, and it sort of changes things in the most unexpected way. Because what actually happens is that Jinnah has this ability, this weird sort of like powers, where she gets home with this guy from the date thing, and they start having sex, and it's getting to like the tense part, and then suddenly she shoots like prongs out. She shoots well, tentacles, let's say how it is, and she shoots them right into him, into like his joints and stuff, are really like far in. And as things like build up to the climax, if you like, she destroys him. She kills him basically. She like he just explodes into like a pool of blood. Typically graphic for this show, but the whole point of it is that she's basically taking his soul. And there's some really smart touches here, because what happens when she takes his soul is that she actually sees his memories. So his memories like flash through her. She basically sees his sort of whole life mapped out and stuff. So it's a really graphic, sort of intense twist on things. And but as things go along, you just learn more and more. That just makes it all the more interesting what she actually is, because we see, not surprisingly, she's doing this for her mother. Her mother's talked her into it, and the mother is basically doing it. There's basically I keep saying basically, I'm sorry, but there's a thing where she's been told that her daughter needs to collect 100 souls, and if she does that, then her daughter can come back to life, can find life. So the whole deal is that basically Jinna is like isn't really there, isn't like really alive. She's like a spiritual sort of being. She's actually been sent to the mother in this form, so she obviously looks human and alive. But the whole twist is that she actually lost her daughter like years ago, and this is when obviously part of the episode is really dark, because the father was meant to have like killed her or been involved somehow. I don't know if they ever make it clear, but the father was basically mistreating them. And because at some point there's like a heated like debate with the mother and daughter, where Jinna is like sort of sticking up for the father. She's saying, well, I never got to know him, and just sort of like coming to his defense, and the mother is like reminding her or saying, no, this is what happened, he abused you and stuff. And I mean, really it's not her, but as I said, the whole idea is that to get these like 100 souls, it's supposed to like bring the daughter back and give her human form. And so that's obviously something the mother wants, because she wants her daughter back. But it's this very interesting device and visual thing where she's seeing like into like the memories of these guys, and it's meant to like reinstall her humanity and her like memories, and she's still got this kind of like, it's sort of very upsetting for her, like the conscious and the just the psychology, because she's obviously having all these different memories, she's seeing some really dark stuff. So it's very murky. Obviously what the mother is making her do isn't right. It's I think it's interesting because there is some sympathy on both ends here. You can definitely sympathise with Jinna, but also there's some you can at least feel for the mother because of what she went through in the past, and you can sort of, I think on some levels, understand it, even what she's doing, even though it's completely wrong, and it's not right to take human lives for this, and as many as she has. But when it's revealed what exactly is going on, it's like, whoa, oh my god, they've thrown me for a loop again on this one, and it's again very sort of like meaty and stuff. I'd say actually the special effects, the CGI in this scene and the scene where you see her doing this, probably not the best. I mean, the tentacles don't look quite right. I guess maybe it's a very hard effect to pull off, but they don't look terrible. But there's something about them that doesn't look quite right. But the scenes definitely work visually, so I think I can let them off on that one. Um, but yeah, the plot moving forward is that we get further into wartime, and the Americans have like moved into Korea and they've taken over the town, and they're saying, "Hey, we're here for you. We're here to bring peace and to end the war and stuff." And that's when Atticus comes into the picture because he's with them, and there's this scene because what it does is it gets into like the political side of things. So we see that there's like this threat or this paranoia over like communism, and which is very prevalent in the world at this time because it touches on it happening in Hollywood and the suspicions of people being communists in Hollywood, and the sort of outrage because, as I said, Judy Garland and her films do feature in this, and it's because Gina really loves them. Like, she goes to the pictures to see like Judy Garland musicals. At the start, she's watching like Meet Me in St. Louis, and we see her watch a couple of different ones, but she just gets lost in like the musicals of Judy Garland, and it's something like she shares at one point. She like the guy she sort of gets on with, who she brings home, like he really likes them as well, but later on it becomes something like a romantic moment with her and Atticus. Um, but yeah, it does get into like the communists and stuff because at one point, sort of at the end of the episode, we get like a tape, a recording of Judy Garland being interviewed, and her just like expressing kind of her just how upset she was really of being accused of stuff like that. So it's a nice little parallel, but yeah, it's very sort of striking and powerful using Judy Garland and some of her musicals as this point of like escapism really for Gina, and the fact that obviously someone in Korea who maybe certainly Korea at this time, a young girl has very limited choices and things. And so I think more than ever, in a way, someone in that part of the world, in that culture, would maybe use like musicals and someone like Garland as a way to escape like their sort of mundane lives. But again, it really captures the the kind of paranoia and the tension in Korea at this time, and stuff happening with communism because once the Americans have like moved in and they've kind of taken over the town, this becomes a big thing because they like rub off their kind of hatred of communism onto the locals, and we see like the locals going after this guy who they suspect is a communist, and they string him up basically. They kill him, and it's right in front of Gina, and I can't remember if it's the mother or one of her friends. I think it's Gina and the mother, but it's making this parallel between obviously racism and, you know, being against sort of difference, and obviously comparing it to this is what's happening to this person who's supposedly a communist. So it's almost this idea then, just because they have a different political belief in than you, then that gives you the right to like kill them, to target them. So again, it goes back to the themes of like bigotry, which obviously we've seen in other episodes. And it's also like a chance for the mother, in a way, to try and reinforce her argument about. I mean, it's a little bit shaky, but she seems to be saying to Gina, then there's nothing wrong with being different, basically. So maybe encouraging her then to use like this power and stuff. There's nothing really wrong with this. But what happens in, I think, one of the most effective scenes is that a group of soldiers, they round up some nurses from the school and they take them out to like this base or something, and they hold them at gunpoint, and they've obviously got some suspicion that one of them is like an agent for like the communists, I should say. But they have them held at gunpoint, so it's a really tense scene. But they're just searching for. They've just got like this impression, then they've been like information coming from the like hospital. But anyway, they got them at gunpoint, and they're threatening them, trying to find out who the agent is, who the secret agent is. And I mean, they're taking no prisoners, because like when he doesn't get answers, the guy with the gun, he just shoots someone randomly, even though he has like no clue if she is or not. And Atticus is there, and that's the first sort of scene that we see him. And it's quite a big scene, because a couple of them at least get killed, and we can see that Gina, I think, is about to speak up and about to, because she's standing next to like a sort of best friend from the school, and she's about to like speak up, I think, and kind of take the rap, like just pretend that she is like a secret agent, just to save her friend, sort of thing. But actually her friend like beats her to it and says it, and the friend's then like carted off. But Atticus is right there, and I think he like spots like Gina, and there's sort of a thing between them, and I think for whatever reason he takes pity on her, and yeah, sort of makes sure that she's not the one who gets taken in. But this is obviously a really awful moment for Gina, because her friends get taken away. They think she's the agent, and she never sees her again. So she's obviously assumes that she's been killed. And this point is raised later with Atticus. She says, "Hey, you killed my friend," and so it becomes partly about revenge for her. Although I think she's partly using that as an excuse for when the whole thing like starts to happen. But anyway, it's Atticus has like forgotten about that anyway, which is interesting. But yeah, it becomes the focus that at this point, she's got 99 souls, so she only needs one more. And the mother is pressuring her, because with the war on, the mother has basically says, well, why don't you go out and get a soldier? Why don't you date a soldier? So we've got this interesting situation where she's like, Atticus has been wounded, he's been injured, and he's at like the hospital sort of thing. So they're tending to him, and obviously Gina like recognizes him, so she kind of is drawn to him and starts, casually talking to him, starts treating him a little bit. And some of it is obviously that she's like buttering him up, and she's trying to set him up to be like the final soul. But the other side is that they do slowly form a tender relationship, and they start taking a liking to each other. And there's this stuff about the Count of Monte Cristo, the book which Atticus is reading, which is another nice little callback because it's been mentioned in a previous episode that he really likes that book. So it's a smart callback because it's obviously in the past now, and we see that he's reading it for the first time. So it just makes it clear again that it's an important book to him, and this is when he was first reading it at war. So it's a vivid sort of memory. Not just that, but because of the stuff with Jenna, because she basically reads it to him the last couple of chapters. Because she does have a funny line at one point, which is that I think because she's not really into the idea of like socializing with him, or maybe she's like fighting the urge to kind of go through with what her mother wants, but he asks her to like read it to him, like the last two chapters, and she actually does like the most annoying thing, which is like spoil the ending. But she does have this funny line where she says it's like a good premise but poorly executed, which I really love her giving like her little critique there of the story. But as they grow closer, she does actually read it to him, and various things. But again, there's a lot of stuff about the politics of the time, and the fact that there's a Korean soldier who's like been enlisted to like the American army, and he's sort of talking to Jinna at one point about his lack of options in Korea as a Korean, and the fact that he maybe felt he had no other choice but to like enlist in the American army and stuff. But obviously certain problems there with him maybe being like sort of like put down by the Americans, and probably subject to like racism and stuff. So again, some interesting political stuff going on in the background. But obviously gradually Gina and Atticus build a relationship. They finally get intimate, but she doesn't go through with it. She starts like wrestling with it because she knows that this power is probably going to come out, and she's probably going to end up killing him. So she kind of puts the brakes on it and says no, and just shouts get out at him, so it forces him to leave. And I think an interesting thing about this scene is that Atticus says it's actually my first time, which is interesting when you think about some of the stuff with him and Yeti, because when they first have sex, she says that was my first time. So again, it's sort of good continuity, because now we're jumping to what was his first time. At least he says it is. But yeah, really good stuff. Powerful scene. Obviously, as I said, she tells him to get out, and the mother isn't best pleased. But they do like reconnect, and their relationship sort of goes to the next level. We see them obviously going out on dates and stuff, and she says to the mother, well, I've learned how to control it, basically. So it's almost like she can have both, and they're really in love. And then it gets to the point where Atticus says, I've been told I can go home now, I can leave for America, but I can stay if you want. obviously he loves her and stuff, so it's like he says, I've got the option, I can stay with you. And she sort of says, well, I can't really ask you to do that. And they start making love again. And I don't know, the idea is that maybe it's going to be like their sort of goodbye to each other. But this time, they go into it and things do get intense, and the powers, well, whatever the right term is, it starts to come out. So the tentacles too come out, they attack him, and it gets to a certain point, and she actually fights it off. So she throws him off, and of course this freaks him out, as it would. He's really, really scared, and he just runs out. She tries to explain him, but the twist in this scene is that she has a vision again. She does actually see into his future, and according to the memory she's seeing, or the soul, he will die in the future, and that's back home. So she frantically tries to tell him, "Oh no, you will die in the future. If you go home, you will die. So don't go home." So that adds some interesting stuff onto the present stuff, because is this true, what she's seeing, and if so, how will it happen? So that's almost like a tragic sort of parting of the ways, because he's really freaked out. He runs out, but at the same time she's seen that he's apparently gonna die in the future, so really like tormenting for her. And that's when things change, because she's like really depressed and really down, and that's when the mother comes back to her and sort of supports her. But I think again it's playing with this idea that it's almost like she's been like suddenly cast aside by Atticus, because she's kind of shown kind of who she is, or what she's been hiding. And it's almost what the mother warned earlier. She said, well, if he knew what you were, or if he saw what you are inside, then he would just leave you. And obviously it proved to be right. But it's not to say then there's not some understanding, and hey, he probably can understand why he left, but at the same time there's definitely, it hits that point and there's definitely some sympathy there. So, and then the episode ends with them going back to like the original woman, and I forget the name actually, but the woman who told the mother all this in the first place. And Gina just wants to know. She asks the woman, "Can you tell me if what I saw is true? Can you tell me if Atticus will really die?" And she doesn't get a clear answer. Like, the woman starts doing like some sort of spiritual magic stuff, and she just comes out with kind of like quotes, and she sort of says, something like, "You have many, many lives or many experiences to go through before you're like done," or I can't remember exactly what she says, but basically she doesn't give her a definite answer on what's going to happen. So it's all up in the air, but it definitely adds some really interesting stuff to the future and to the present plot with Atticus and co. So sort of thinking we're going to see more of Gina. Maybe she'll come to like America or something like that in a future episode. But yeah, another really good episode, really good drama, another like interesting like sort of monster supernatural things. Yeah, really good period stuff again. So as consistent as always, really. That's this week's Lovecraft Country. If you've seen the episode, Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you are a new subscriber or a new viewer on the channel. Help keep this sort of content coming. I just should flag up one or two other things. If you're a fan of horror movies and you're obviously looking forward to October as I am, then you should know then I will be doing a marathon of horror watches throughout October. As many horror movie reviews as I can fit in, at least 31, I will promise you that, so at least one a day. So you've got that to look forward to. I've been watching some in advance and getting ready. And also I will be doing some special live streams during October. So some special horror movie watches on stream. So that's a chance for you guys to take part and watch along with me, and hopefully have a blast. So some big stuff to look forward to on the channel in October. There's also one or two other things maybe I've got planned, but I won't promise anything yet. But it should be a fun time anyway. But yeah, I'll be back about this time next week with another Lovecraft Country review. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.